Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 16th June 2018. I lost my pencil, so I am writing with my finger, so it may create some inconvenience to you. Please bear with me for a day or two. The first article is spate of lynchings. In a democratic governance, we have three organs. One is state, civil society, private sector. So the state deals with power. Civil society deals with solidarity and civility among the people. And added to that, the private sector more and more will be concerned about economic might and profitability. In this case, the civil society is like a balancer between the greed of the market, power thirst of the state. So civil society makes the citizens to stand to the power of the state, to stand to the greed of the market. Then what is this civil society? Civil society is an associational space between the common citizens. As powerful elite constitute the polity or political system, civil society consists of collective voice of the ordinary people. So in this scenario, this associational life is expected to be strong and vibrant. So as the space becomes more and more illiberal, cleavaged, then mistrust if grows across the citizens, this collective voice gets muffled. In this case, this illiberalism is growing in the civic space. That's what the author is trying to explain. Lynchings, which are happening in India, are a critical example of the weakening of the public space, where argument and debate are discouraged, and argument and debate are criticized as leftist. This is what author trying to say over here. This is where she says civil society in peril. So when two people come and meet, talk to each other, then obviously it leads to some trust between the people. So that's what civil society does. That's where we call it as civil society helps in building the social capital. So in India, this social capital, which its strength before, is weakening now. And one of the reasons which it is not stated in this article is the growth of the social media too. Social media is making the people very rigid in their perspectives, in their opinions. They are not ready to accept a middle path or a common ground. Because there is a closed loop circularity. If I am making a statement, the people who like my statement, they repeatedly get my own views. Because of this, a closed loop circularity is created. My opinions are reinforced again and again. And in this case, a democratic debate is becoming a victim. That's how we can see it as. And then temple and state. How India became secular. That is what is the question here. If you see carefully, Britishers, though initially have took the religion into the affairs of the state, slowly they got distanced from it. So in this case, there is a clear circular in various provinces not to involve the state in the affairs of the religion. If you go to UK per se, the state is not secular over there. So there is a state religion. Church of England is very powerful. And they have their representation in the upper house, House of Lords. In India, so even after that, in 1936, when local leadership has come into power due to elections, they started again connecting the religion with the state. And after independence in the Constitution Assembly, an Establishment Act is kept or is brought in by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. It has clearly stated that there has to be no purpose for the religion in the affairs of the state and vice versa. But a committee under K.M. Panikkar and Munshi, they have removed this establishment clause. And they have brought a positive role for the state in promoting religions equally. So a positive notion of secularism has come into existence because of this. Later, Supreme Court various judgments, it has tried to separate the religious affairs and the administrative affairs of a religious institution. The administrative affairs, they can be monitored by the state, but not the religious affairs. In this case, salaries to the priests and conduct of various ceremonies and the expenditure related to it. These all are considered as administrative matters. Today the situation is, on administrative aspects, state can interfere, but with religious matters, state keeps itself aloof. And even in the religious practices which are violative of the constitutional values, such as equality, justice, etc., the state can involve. This is what is the status today. Act of intimidation. It is about the murder of Shujat Bukhari, a renowned journalist in Kashmir. If you see, today during Ramzan month, we have ceasefire and which is doing relatively well. And it is expected that ceasefire will continue. And this is an act of intimidation because certain elements do not want the peace to prevail, do not want the common people to take the side of Indian state. So the killings are seen as a way for it. That's why Mr. Shujat Bukhari was killed. Sweet nothing. It is about bailout package which was given to sugarcane farmers. Is this trying to fix the structural flaws or not? What is the structural flaw over here? Remember, sugar cane is very water intensive. Globally, sugar production is very high. And in this case, the sugar prices are falling. So, do we need to encourage the farmers to shift away from sugarcane in water distressed conditions and in the era of falling prices? Or shall we encourage them by providing them with certain bailout packages? So essentially it talks about, does we need to encourage the state to provide relief to these farmers, or do we need to leave them to the question of market forces so that they can move away from the sugarcane crop and grow the others which are in demand? Remember, the sugarcane farmers, they have to sell their goods to a mill. So this cane which comes to the mill, it is fixed. It means if I am growing in a particular region, I am expected to sell my cane only to that particular miller. And even though miller has sufficient quantity to process, how much is grown over in that area, he has to buy it. And this miller has to produce sugar and molasses which he sells. So here, as the price of the sugar is falling, the miller and his excess production is unable to pay it for the farmers. The debts so accumulated are around 22,000 crore rupees. Now what the government states is, it will buy a kg of sugar at 29 rupees and keep it as a stock. In this case, the government is not providing for complete relief, and also government is unable to take the total costs of production for a miller. So the fundamental question again, do we need to leave these sectors for market forces so that farmers can diversify their crop patterns, or the state has to go forward giving the bailout packages? The question remains still. Center allows pulses import despite overflowing godowns. India used to import the pulses, and now by and large for the last 2 years we have surplus production of pulses. But 3 years back we had a huge deficit. Then Prime Minister Modi made visit to Africa, that is Mozambique and all these pulses grown countries. We made an agreement to import the pulses. So, is it good for international trade to import when necessary and to stop when we are adequate? That brings in uncertainty in our dealing with the other countries. So we may lose our import markets very quickly if we have this behavior. So that is the reason why, even though government has surplus this year, it is importing as per the schedule. Nuclear standoff with North Korea largely solved. So US President Trump says the summit is by and large successful, and this nuclear standoff is a thing of past. And there is a goodwill which is prevailing at the highest level between the President Trump and Kim Jong-un of North Korea. That's how it is been stated as. Right. Majority of Indians in lowest wealth group, that is what is Boston Consultation Group. This Boston Consulting Group, it is kind of a think tank. What it says in its report is, in India more than 55% of wealth belongs to the people who have got the income less than $1 lakh per annum. Net worth is less than $1 lakh, not the income. And across the world, it is 18%. That shows disproportionate poverty levels in India. And finally, we have the notes which will be available to you at iax.in/civilsprep. Thank you very much.